Right. So, a very good afternoon to everyone present here, both to my colleagues. So, ma'am, we also have staff from Symbiosis and faculty as well who have joined and are looking forward to your lecture. So we have, so I welcome both my colleagues and students to this very interesting session. This, of course, is our second synchronous session for the course on Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And we are greatly honored and privileged to have someone like Professor Shashiprabha Kumar with us. And we get a chance this afternoon to listen to her talk about this very grand topic, Vedic vision of inclusiveness and interconnectedness. I'll very briefly introduce Professor Kumar to all of you all. So Professor Kumar is currently a distinguished fellow at the Vivekananda International Foundation and Dean of Sri Shankaracharya Sanskrit Mahavidyalaya, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. She was also the former Vice Chancellor of the Sanchi University of Buddhist and Indic Studies. She is also the chairperson. She has also been the chairperson of a special center for Sanskrit studies at JNU. So as you all know, she is an acclaimed Sanskrit scholar, very well versed in classical Indian philosophy. During her teaching career, and her teaching career spans almost 50 years, she has supervised and guided over 50 students for their postdoctoral, PhD, and MPhil research. She has over 150 research papers, review articles, some 37 books to her credit. Currently, her areas of interest are the philosophy of the Vedas and the Upanishads, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, and Vedanta, besides, of course, Buddhism and Jainism. Professor Kumar has also been the recipient of several awards, including the prestigious President's Certificate Honor in Sanskrit, the Shankar Puruskar from KK Birla Foundation, Ramakrishna Sanskrit Award from the Canadian World Education Foundation, Mahakavi Kalidasa Sanskrit Sadhana Puruskar from the Maharashtra government, and an honorary D.Lit that was conferred by the Uttarakhand Sanskrit University in Haridwar. So before I invite Professor Kumar to deliver her lecture, I would like to invite Dr. Vidya, Pro-Chancellor of SIU, to welcome ma'am to Symbiosis.
Thank you very much, Gayatri. A very good afternoon to Dr. Shashiprabha, and this is the second time, ma'am, that we are meeting. I'm very glad to inform my dear students and faculty members who've joined in the audience that Dr. Shashiprabha, you've just heard about her. She's a very, very erudite scholar, and I was so happy that I was one amongst many such erudite scholars on the committee to frame a curriculum for global citizenship for Indian universities. We all know that the national education policy has really opened up the boundaries of higher education here in India, but a very strong emphasis on Indian knowledge systems. The national education policy speaks about creating global citizens with deep-rooted Indian values. And I think this is the very philosophy with which Symbiosis International University and Symbiosis as an organization, ma'am, was started by my father, Dr. Muzumdar. In fact, he has also joined this, your talk, but yes, informally. And with this whole concept of believing that the world is one family, he started this organization as a very small organization in our house where foreign and Indian students were brought together to promote international understanding and brotherhood. And with this concept and mission of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, we've been able to, spearhead this concept in India for the last 50 years. And I'm so happy that, I'll send you some of the talks by foreign students who have passed out of our institution and who hold Indian values at such high regard. And they believe that because they've studied in an institution like this, this institution has shaped their minds and character. And I think the larger picture and the larger mandate of any university is exactly to do this, to create individuals with, with very open minds, as if they are citizens of the world and understand the cultures. First of all, understand our own culture and also understand other cultures and respect other cultures. So with these few words, ma'am, I welcome you to this virtual talk, but I'm just eagerly looking forward for you to come to Pune. We have campuses now all across India, not just in Pune, but in Nasik, Nagpur, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Noida. And students here in the audience have joined from all these campuses. We have 8 different faculties: management, law, computer science, engineering, health sciences, humanities and social sciences, and architecture and design and media and communication. So we have students from all these faculties who have joined this talk, and I'm looking forward to listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I now invite Professor Kumar to deliver her lecture. And after the lecture, I will invite students to share their questions. Thank you so much. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
So let us begin with the Vedic invocation, which has been a tradition as well as a practice with me. So please join if you can, otherwise just listen and I'll translate it in English also. Om Indra Shreshthani Dravinaani Dhehi Chittim Dakshasya Subhagatvamasme Posham Rayinam Tanuna Swadmanam Vachah Sudinatvamanna. And I translate, this is from the Rig Veda. O God, bless us with the treasures of wealth, spirit of ability, and good fortune. May we obtain from you an abundance of prosperity, security of our bodies, sweetness of our speech, and auspiciousness of days. And then I take another one, which is at the beginning of every teaching session that took place in the Upanishadic tradition. This is from the Upanishad, and this must be well known to most of you. Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. May the Lord Supreme protect us both, the teacher and the taught. May he nourish us both together. May we both perform various actions together. May our learning be illuminating to us both, and may we not be jealous of each other. May peace prevail everywhere. Dear Professor Vidya Yervadekarji, Pro-Chancellor, Symbiosis International University, Dr. Anita Patankar, and Dr. Gayatri Mendhana from the Symbiosis School of Liberal Arts, and dear and distinguished participants in this value-added course titled Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I'm really delighted to join you all for sharing some basic ideas from Vedic philosophy. As we all know, this epithet Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, this is of a much later origin, and the full part of this is Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Ayam Nijah Paro Veti Ganana Lagu Chetasam Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That this is mine and this is not mine, in this manner think those whose hearts are very small and very narrow. But for those who have a broad heart, for them the whole world is a family. But the basic idea for this statement comes from the Vedas. And Vedas, as you all might be knowing, if not knowing, then you must remember that the Vedas are the oldest available texts of humankind. Now it has been accepted by UNESCO as well. They propound the most novel vision of cosmic harmony and global peace. The Vedic philosophy presents a complete, comprehensive, and holistic worldview according to which all life in the cosmos is intertwined and interwoven. The process of interrelation amongst all these levels works at different spheres of existence. Accordingly, nothing is exclusive in this universe in the sense that nothing stands in isolation. Even the highest principle of consciousness, whom we call Brahman in the later Upanishads, But according to Veda, it's not just the Brahman. There are diverse names for it, but that is the all-pervading absolute that is permeated in all the beings of the world. And we have this statement from the Yajurveda, Yatra Vishwam Bhavatyeka Nidam. The whole world becomes one nest for the humanity. So the humanity rests and dwells in one single nest, and that single nest is the universe. In other words, each entity of the cosmos is pulsating with the one innermost subtle principle of consciousness that is known as Prajapati in the Rig Veda, Skambha in the Atharva Veda, Tadeva in the Yajur Veda, and Vishwadeva in the Sama Veda. So different names, but it is one and the same. But I would like to highlight that this Vedic vision of inclusiveness works at two levels. This inclusiveness is at the metaphysical level. And when we talk of inclusiveness, we mean that the gross objects and the living beings, they all are included in a vertical model into the subtle one. The gross merges into the subtle, subtle into the subtler, and the subtler into the subtlest. This is at the metaphysical level rather. But the other vision of interconnectedness, that is of a horizontal model, and where the different beings and different objects, they are all interconnected. Not only interconnected with other species, but they are also intra-connected with their own species. So in these two models, I'll discuss in detail, a little bit of detail. Nothing is exclusive, as I said earlier. Everything is merging in something that is subtle. So the created or the manifested physical world that we observe, this is not uncaused or accidental, but ordained and controlled by an underlying, unlimited, ultimate principle, the innermost spirit, which is self-dependent. And I quote from Rig Veda, Atma Devanam Bhuvanasya Garbhe Yatha Vasham Charati Deva Ekah. It is the life force of the divine powers. It is the germ of the world and moves according to its own will. It is also worth mentioning that different terms used in the Vedas for denoting several deities like Indra, Mitra, Varuna, etc., they are in fact the names of the same principle. Single spirit, which rests at the heart of the universe, manifests itself in various forms, sustains the whole world, and rules over it too. Rupam Rupam Pratirupo Babhuva Tadasya Rupam Pratichakshanaya Indro Mayabhihi Pururupa Iyate Yukta Yasya Harayah Shatadasha. Again from the Rig Veda, and I translate. In every figure of his creation, the resplendent Lord has been the model. Rupam Rupam Pratirupo Babhuva. This is the only form for us to look on. He moves in multi-forms by his designs. Indro Mayabhihi Pururupa Iyate. Indra, or the Lord, is one, but he appears in many forms. He moves in multi-forms by his designs, since his motivations yoked to the universe are thousands in number. In the cosmic vision of the Vedas, which is the most secular, universal, and therefore sacred, all forms of life share a common bond. All animate beings and inanimate objects are manifestations of the one and same principle. It must also be clarified that this is not the monism of traditional type or monotheism in the technical sense of the term, since each being or thing in the cosmos has its own individual existence and purpose in the integral worldview of the Vedas. So there is one single absolute principle which is at the root of everything, which sustains and controls everything, but it doesn't mean that the created world or the objects of the world have no existence or no independence of their own. Each one has its own importance, each one has its own space to blossom in its own way, but they are all included into subtler forms. It is not that oneness alone matters in the universe, as will be clear from various statements of the Vedas. And I'm not going to quote many of them so that you feel burdened. I'll just explain the concept. There is this very well-known one. You must have heard of the Nasadiya Sukta of Rig Veda, which is translated as the hymn of creation. It is known as the hymn of creation, Nasadiya Sukta. Na Asat, from this term it begins, therefore it is known as Nasadiya Sukta of Rig Veda. It says, Ani Davatam Swadhaya Tadekam. Tadekam, there was only one principle which was self-sustaining, which didn't require anything else. But when the world was created, everything needs something else as its foundation, as its sustaining source. So that one is the Ekam, which does not need anything for sustaining. Tasmad Anidavatam Swadhaya Tadekam Tasmad Dhanyan na para kinchanasa. There was nothing else beyond that single principle. So there is one principle which is the ultimate, which is the grossest, which is the absolute, but it is not that the only principle matters. Everything matters in the universe, as we shall see. It needs to be emphasized that the Vedic view of inclusiveness does not deny individuality to different beings or objects. Rather, it suggests a symphony of sorts, where each entity of the cosmos is in harmony with the greater divine and subtle principle. It is not uniformity or oneness, where identities have to merge themselves, but a unique diversity in unity. Not unity in diversity, but diversity in unity, wherein all forms of existence have full freedom to blossom in their own way and at their own space. But they all share a spiritual bond at the deeper level which nourishes them. It is not to be imposed from above or from outside, but inherently woven in their existence. The most striking feature of this philosophy is that it does not restrict itself in any of the class, creed, or group, but encompasses the whole cosmos in its tide. The various appellations of the divine principles are also not personal nouns or individual names of any particular deity. They are, in fact, different depictions of the same supreme principle, as the Rig Veda says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. Reality is one, but the wise men speak of it in different ways. Ekam Sat. Sat is one. Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. So it is a globalization of a different kind which seeks spiritual unity rather than physical uniformity. The real import of Vedic statements like the following ones, which proclaim that the whole world is like one nest or a single village, can be grasped only when this subtle background of Vedic view is comprehended. I have already quoted one from the Yajurveda, Yatra Vishwam Bhavatyeka Nidam. We have another one from the Rig Veda which says, Vishwam Pushtam Gramesmin Anaturam. May the whole universe become a strong and disease-free village. Vishwam Pushtam Grame. Grama is a village. Asmin anaturam. See, we are now down with this pandemic, corona. And the Rig Veda is praying that the whole universe should be one single village and it should be free of all types of diseases. Anaturam. Vishwam Pushtam Grame Asmin Anaturam. And the other is from Atharva Veda, which says Mahat Sadhastham Mahati Babhuvitha. It is from the Prithvi Sukta, or a hymn to the earth, which says, O earth, O great station, thou hast become a great abode for all of us. Mahat Sadhastham Mahati Babhuvitha. Actually, the unitive vision of Vedas finds expression in several other forms also, such as follows. Now I am going to explain 3 principles which can explain this idea of inclusiveness, and the Vedas have used all the 3 principles. The first one is the dualism of binary principles. Dualism between binary principles is a basic concept which underlies the whole of Vedic philosophy. The bond between Bhuta and Bhavya, Agni and Soma, Dyava, Prithvi, Rai, Prana, Rita, Satya, and Yosha, Vrisha. These are the twin terms which have been used numerous times in the Vedic verses. The bond between these terms is so strong as well as deep-rooted in Vedic view that one cannot explain one without referring to the other. And I will explain one of these, like Rita and Satya. Rita is the cosmic order and Satya is the moral order. The cosmic order operates outside the human beings. It is the natural cosmic order, while Satya is the moral principle which operates within human beings. So Rita and Satya, they are always almost coming together in the Vedas. We have the famous hymn, Ritam cha Satyam chabhidhat tapasodhya jayata. So Rita and Satya, they almost appear together. Similarly, Agni and Soma. Agni is the principle of heat and warmth, and Soma is the principle of cold, cool. So Surya and Chandra. Agni is symbolic of the solar light and energy. Soma is symbolic of the lunar light and its cold temperature. Similarly, Dyava, Prithvi. Dyava is the upper region, Dewlok, where sun is appearing or shining. That is Dewlok. In between is the Antariksha or space. And Prithvi is this earth, ground where we all are stationed. But the dual principle of Dyava, Prithvi, from earth to heaven you can translate. But actually the translation is never adequate. It can never be exact. When we say heaven for Dewloka, it's not heaven, because we don't have that concept of heaven which is ingrained in the English term heaven. Dewloka means where the sun shines. The upper region, the uppermost region, that is Dyava, and Prithvi is where our feet are stationed. So these are the twin terms. Like that, we have many binary terms. So first principle I mentioned was of dualism. The second principle is complementarity of opposites. You see, these Dyava, Prithvi, Agni, Soma, some of the twin terms I mentioned, but there are some more which are opposites in themselves. But being opposites, they are not in confrontation, rather they are in coordination and complementarity. Complementarity of opposites is another conceptual technique which is very foundational and widely available in the Vedas. The pairs of antonym terms like Anrita, Rita. Anrita means the falsehood. Rita means the cosmic truth, the greater truth. Mrityu and Amrita. Tama and Jyoti. Asat and Sat. Vamana and Virat, Avidya and Vidya, etc., are so frequently used in Vedic depiction that it is essential to grasp the symbolic complementarity underlying these ideas for a proper understanding of Vedic worldview. So, dualism, then complementarity, and third one is parallelism. Parallelism between gross and the subtle, or microcosmic and macrocosmic, is also a very, very significant principle of Vedic interpretation. It is therefore stated, yatha pinde tatha brahmande. Whatever is there in the macrocosm outside, that all pervades within ourselves. You see, this is a pinda, this is one unit, my body. Whatever is happening within my body, that is happening outside in the gross universe. Brahmand, from Pinda to Brahmand. Pinda is the micro model and Brahmand is the macro model. The Vedic principle of interpretation always applies this model and says that if you want to understand the universe or the cosmos, you cannot, because you have limited capacity. The universe is unlimited. So if you understand yourself, whatever is happening within you, you can understand a little bit of the macrocosm or the universe. Accordingly, there is a correspondence between the broad principles of the outer world and the subtle processes taking place in the inner world in Vedic view. Hence, the atomic as well as the most pervasive are the twin ends of the same string. The Vedic statements, like the following ones, which apparently seem to be paradoxical, are in fact suggesting the same symbolic relation between two aspects of one and the same principle. One is minute and the other is the gross. Like we have from the Yajurveda 40th chapter, which is also known as Ishavasyam Upanishad, and it says, Tadejati Tannaijati. It moves, but still it doesn't move. Tadejati Tannaijati. Tadu dure, that is far. Tadu antike, it is very near. Tadantarasya sarvasya, that is within everyone. Tadu sarvasyasya bahyata, and it is outside everyone too. So how paradoxical. It is outside, it is inside, it is moving, it is not moving, it is subtle, it is gross, it is near, and it is far. But this contradiction is removed when we understand that within the pinda, it is not moving, but outside the pinda, energy is moving, principles are moving. Tadejati, tannaijati. Within this pinda, it doesn't move. We can't see the movement actually, but outside we see the movement. Within this pinda, it is near, but when we see out, it seems that it is very far. Like that, we interpret the Vedic principles. Now, from inclusiveness, we come to this, and this regarding this inclusiveness, one thing more I have to tell, that all the entities of the universe, they are not losing their identity when they merge into the subtle. They are all independent entities, and each of the entities is strewn in some string. Just like the Bhagavad Gita says, Mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva, that the whole universe is strewn into me, just like the pearls are strewn in a string. And this idea is available in the Atharva Veda, from where I quote, Vedaham sutram vitatam yasmin ota ima prajaha. All these entities of the world are strewn in that sutra. Sutra is the thread, the string. Sutram sutrasyaham veda. If I know the sutra of the sutra, this sutra which is visible, beyond that, that which is not visible. If I know the sutra, the source of this visible thread, atho yad brahmanam mahat, then I can reach to the ultimate, the big, macro principle which is holding the universe. So this pervasion of the all-pervasive principle is not like enveloping everything. Rather, it encompasses everything. It doesn't negate that all these entities are not there. They are all there, but they are all spiritually, inherently connected and related. That is what the idea of inclusiveness is. From inclusiveness, now I move on to interconnectedness. The integral approach of Vedic philosophy is revealed in repeated assertions. One thing I want to ask, if it is too heavy for some of the participants, may I suggest if they want to discuss in between, we can discuss now, or we can discuss at the end. So make it interactive. If you have some queries, some doubts, or if something I have not been able to clarify, you are free to ask anything. Or I shall go ahead.
So does anyone have any questions? Would you like any terms clarified? Are you all familiar with some of these concepts? So now is a good time to sort of, if you just want to sort of put your questions in the chat box, that would be great. So even while ma'am is speaking, if at any point you have a question, just put it in the chat box and I will bring it up and I will raise your question to ma'am. Right?
Yeah,
because some of these concepts and these
pouring out everything if you are not able to understand what I'm saying.
Right. No, I'm sure, ma'am, because your teaching style is so good and you're giving us examples and you're connecting everything. I'm sure students are able to understand it. And I think,
yeah.
Pardon? Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
Please.
No, I was saying that I think since some of these ideas are new, I think they're still processing it. They're listening very intently, but I think they will have questions perhaps maybe at a later point.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
So now I come to the idea of interconnectedness. As I said, the integral approach of Vedic philosophy is revealed in repeated assertions to the effect that all objects of the world are interrelated at the empirical level also. The inclusiveness was at the metaphysical level, but this interconnectedness is visible at the empirical level also. This relationship is again to be observed from two angles: interconnectedness and intraconnectedness. It means that on the one hand, all beings are connected with other living and non living beings of the world, like human beings and nature, for example. And on the other hand, they are also connected with the members of their own species, like human beings with other human beings. For example, the Vedas propound in more clear terms that there is interdependence between human beings and other forms of nature. In fact, among all the elements of creation, and Vedas surpass all other literature in depicting this bond between human beings and the nature. Nature here is not an object, nothing to be consumed or exploited or used. Nature is a part of creation, just like human beings. Nature also has its own independent entity. It pulsates, it feels, and it needs to be cared, and we have to have natural affinity and concern for preservation of nature. Various forms of nature have been depicted, and each one of them is so beautifully described that it is the poetry. Actually, the Veda is the first poetry of the world. Veda is the first book of the world, and Veda is the first document which describes and depicts the natural beauty, the beauty of the sun, beauty of the dawn, Usha. Beautiful narration of Usha. Usha is a deity. Deity doesn't mean here like we do today, that deity is the one whom we worship. It's not a worship of the ritual type. It's a worship that every morning when we observe this beautiful damsel called Usha, we are happy. We are so happy and so elated that we describe the beauty of Usha in different forms. There are so many verses for describing the beauty of Usha. Usha is one. We have Aditi, we have water, we have rivers, mountains, sun, moon, and whatnot. Even the animals, birds, forest, we have the whole hymn addressed in invocation to the forest. Aranyani Sukta, Pashu Poshana Sukta, Prithvi Sukta, a majestic hymn which is an ode to the earth. So earth personified as a deity, but earth symbolizing all the natural aspects. So Dyava Prithvi I mentioned. Dyava is the Dyuloka, the uppermost region, and Prithvi is the earth. The symbolism between Dyava Prithvi that the Vedas narrate, that is that Dyulok is our father and earth is our mother. So Mata and Mata Prithvi Mahi Iyam Dyaur me Pita. So Dyuloka is my father and earth is my mother. Mata Bhumi Putro Ham Prithivyaha. Bhumi, earth is my mother and I am the son of the soil. So this type of emotional bonding, this relationship between the aspects of nature and human beings, that is what is missing today. We have gone too far from nature. And that is the crux of all our troubles and problems that we are facing today. So the single point of the Vedic philosophy, if we can understand and emulate that we have to care and have genuine concern for nature, that will eliminate most of the problems that we are facing. Whenever we pray in the Veda, we just don't pray for ourselves. We pray Shanno Bhava Dvipade Sham Chatushpade. Sham means peace and happiness. Dvipade, bipeds, and Chatushpade for quadrupeds. So human beings and animals, human beings and birds, human beings and the trees, human beings and the reptiles, the wild animals, every name is mentioned there. The Vedic prayers for peace in all spheres of the cosmos and all elements of the physical world. We know of the famous Shanti Patha. I am sure most of you might have heard if you are not aware of the meaning. Dyaur mein Shantihi, Antariksham Shantihi, Prithivi Shantihi, Shantirapah, Shantiroshadhayah, Shantihi Vanaspatayah, Shantirvishve Devaha, Shantir Brahma, Shantihi Sarvam, Shantihi Shantireva, Shantihi Sama Shantiredhi. May there be peace in sky, peace in mid-region, Antariksha, peace in earth, Prithvi, peace in waters, Apaha, peace among plants, Oshadhaya, peace among trees, Vanaspataya, peace among all the deities or divine forces, Vishve Devaha. Peace may be there in Brahman, the widest principle. Peace in the universe, Shantihi Vishwam. Peace in peace, Shantihi Shantireva. And last but not the least, we pray Sa Ma Shanti Redhi. May that peace come to me. Imagine if all around me there is fire, there is trouble, there is tension, there is so much of cold, or there is this, what you call snowfall, there is corona, there are so many diseases. And if I am sitting and praying for my own peace, will that peace be meaningful? Can that peace be achieved? Never. So the Vedic prayer, this is a very famous prayer, and this prays for cosmic peace. Let there be peace everywhere. And last, may that peace come to me, because I can be at peace only when everything else around me is at peace. It may be vice versa, that if I am peaceful at my heart, if I am peaceful within me, then I see peace outside. Otherwise, if I am not at peace, if I am at disease, then I create disease everywhere. If I am disturbed, I create disturbance. So it is both ways. But the prayer, the beauty of the prayer is that we pray for everything first, and then we pray for ourselves. Obviously, this interconnectedness among various elements of nature is a distinct character of Vedic philosophy, which has percolated in the post-Vedic literature across Indian tradition. The Vedic vision of interconnectedness among various aspects of the universe is best exemplified in the concept of yajna. You might have been hearing, or some of you might have observed this ritual of yajna. But what I mean to say here and explain, that is not just a ritual, that is a spiritual principle of yajna. The natural, the physical, the ritual, and the spiritual. All these layers of existence are deeply rooted in the principle of yajna from the cosmic point of view. And in the Veda, when they describe creation, they describe as if the creation was also a form of yajna, srishti yajna. Yajjena yajyam ayajanta devaha. The deities, the divine forces created this world as if in the form of a yajna. They performed yajna and srishti yajna started. What sort of yajna was it? Because the term yajna has many meanings. And the first meaning out of that is Deva Puja, propitiating the divine. Deva Puja, Sangati Karan, then living in a communitarian way, participating in with all others around me. Sangati Karan, that is also yajna. Now that we are meeting, sitting together, talking to each other, that is a form of yajna, because this is not only for a selfish interest. I am talking so that you know what it is in the Vedas, and you are trying to imbibe that. So all this meaningful congregation that is not held with a selfish ulterior motive, that is yajna. Therefore it is said, yajyo vai shreshtatamam karma. Yajna is the noblest of acts, because in yajna we are offering our best, not for myself but for the others. The sun is offering its best for others. The moon is offering its best. The air is offering its best. The trees are offering themselves. So this offering, this sacrificing oneself for the other is known as yajna. So when creation started, the Lord, the divine principle, surrendered, sacrificed oneself and created this multiple universe. Through the combination and separation of two basic elements, Agni and Soma, representing twin aspects of the cosmos, that is, solar energy and other products sustaining on it. This is the formula of synthesis, a blending of the natural with the physical and rising of the ritual up to the spiritual, the sky and the heaven, the solar and the earthly, the bodily and the psychic are combined through a process of sacrificing one for the other. This principle of yajna is stated to be the best of acts, since it is based on the wider principle of synthesis through sacrifice. In fact, the universe cannot sustain or function without this feeling of mutual cooperation or sacrifice. This is the secret of balance of nature at the Brahmanda or cosmic level, where the offerings are being made every moment for the divine powers and they are being invoked. The coordination of the humans with them is made possible, and the sacrifice is completed with a feeling of giving up oneself for the world at large. From the Pinda or individual point of view, yajna is an internal process in which the best presiding deity is residing within. In this way, Vedic yajna symbolizes the widest principle of the universe through mutual interconnectedness. You see, if I am eating food, for example, in my mouth, food is put or offered into the mouth. But if the mouth keeps the food to itself, will life be possible? No, it won't be. So mouth gets the offering, but it doesn't keep the food with it. It passes on. And it like that the process goes on and life goes. Similarly, when we put an offering into fire, it is said, Agnir Vai Devanam Mukham. Agni is the mouth of divine forces. Whatever we put into fire, that gets magnified in subtle form. If I put something into fire, it not only gets magnified, but it also gets subtler. I have put the gross material, but it has become subtle and more powerful. Its power intensifies when put into fire. So, this is the principle of offering Agni and Soma. It is getting so cold. All of us were craving for sun all these days, 3 weeks past in this month. And once the sun appears, everything gets normal. Life moves on. People start coming out. The flowers and the plants start rejoicing. So, this is the principle of Yajna working at the Brahmanda level. The principle of Yajna working at the Pinda level. When I eat something and it goes on from gross to subtle, from subtle to subtler, and then it becomes and transforms in the form of blood and life force. The vitality of our body is dependent on the gross food, but the gross food is not retained like that. There is an internal process which makes it possible to get transformed from gross to subtle. As far as the now I talked of interconnectedness through this principle of Yajna, coming last to the intraconnectedness of human beings, and that is where this principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, at the very gross level, it means that the whole world is a family. What is the basic idea of a family? What is the solid foundation of a family? The foundation of a family is the love and care between the husband and the wife, and among other members of the family. So the Vedas have a plenty to offer in this field also. As far as the intraconnectedness of human beings is concerned, the Vedas hold that the whole world should be tied with the bond of brotherhood and friendship, since all the human beings are progeny of the divine. Shrinvantu Vishwe Amritasya Putraha. All the human beings, you are the progeny of the immortal. Listen to what I have to say. Shrinvantu Vishwe Amritasya Putraha. Vishwe, all. Amritasya, of immortality. Putraha is progeny. So all the human beings of the world are coming from the same single source. They are all progeny of the immortal. We are coming out of immortal to this mortal life. But what is the aspiration of humanity? To reach immortal. That is why, because our source is immortal, we crave for immortality, but mortality is given to us. From mortality, we have to reach out to immortality. And while we are on this earth, while we are suffering or facing or enjoying mortality, we should be related to each other. We should be connected to each other in such a way that love and affection percolates. The Vedas distinguish themselves from all other literatures of the world by an holistic view of humanity without any distinction. There is no mention of any religion, any sect, caste, color, or creed. A clarion call is given to all human beings to become humane and bear divine progeny. Manur Bhava, become a human being. Manur Bhava, Janaya Daivyam Janam, and rise to the status of an enlightened one, the divine. So there is a proclamation for all human beings that you are all coming from that immortal. Be Manu, be human. What is the word Manu? Manu means that who thinks, who contemplates before acting. You see, there are three terms in Sanskrit. One is Jana, anybody who is born, maybe an insect is born, an animal is born, a human being is born. So jana, jayate iti jana. Whosoever is born is a jana. He who sees, that is a pashu. Pashyati iti pashu. He who only sees, that is a pashu. Those of us who only see and do not think, we are living at the level of the animal, isn't it? Pashu, pashyati, just see. But manur bhava, become a manu. How do we become a manu? We are born a human being and you are telling us to become a man or human. How do we become? By contempt. Manu word is derived from manute. He who thinks, he who contemplates before doing, he is a manu. Pashu is he who can only see. Manu is he who can do some manana, some chintana, some vichara. So manur bhava. The humankind should have universal friendship with each and every being. We have prayers in the Yajurveda for universal friendship. Mitrasya ma chakshusha sarvani bhutani samikshantam. May all beings of the world look at me with the eye of a friend. Mitrasyaham chakshusha sarvani bhutani samikshe. May I look at every being of the world with an eye of a friend. Mitrasya chakshusha samiksha mahe. And may everybody look at each other with the friendly eye. So this friendliness, the universal friendliness, this is the crux of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Because even in the marriage ceremony, we have this Saptapadi ritual, 7 steps together. The couple takes 7 steps, and the last and 7th step, he says, Sakhe Saptapadi Bhava. Come, O wife, let us walk together for friendship. If there is no friendship between the couple, then there is no idea of family can sustain, because friendship is the final, the most important idea of a marriage. I am coming to that. It is only when we are friendly with everybody that all the quarters of the world can become friendly to us. And there is another statement in the Rig Veda which says, Puman Pumansam Paripatu Vishwatah. May one human being protect the other from all sides. By all means, we should protect one another. What better idea of humanism can be thought of? Not only this, the Vedic idea of a fear-free world suggests that humanity can meaningfully survive and strive further if there is genuine goodwill and mutual trust. We have prayers for fearlessness. May there be fearlessness everywhere. And I recite one of the prayers, Abhayam Mitrat, Abhayam Amitrat. May I be fear-free from my friends. May I be fearless from my foes or enemies. Abhayam Jyatad, Abhayam Parokshat. May I be fearless from those whom I know and fearless from those whom I don't know. Abhayam Naktam, Abhayam Divanah. May there be no fear for me when I sleep during the night. There should be no fear for me from friends and foes during the day when I am awake. Sarva Asha Mama Mitram Bhavantu. May all the quarters of the world be friendly to me. When there is no fear, there will be friendliness. When there is friendliness, there will be mutual trust, care, and concern. And that is when the idea of family, whether we are bound by blood or not, the idea of family will get nourished. Although it is natural for any group of people or any members of a species that there will be differences of mental, physical, and financial status, yet the Vedas exhort human beings to live peacefully and affectionately. There are statements like Samani Prapa Sahavo Anna Bhagah. Prapa is a place where we drink water. प्याऊ जिसको हिंदी में हम लोग बोलते हैं प्रपा. The word, Sanskrit word is prapa, and Veda says samani prapa sahavo anna bhagah. May you eat together, may you drink water together, Sagdhishcha me, sapitishcha me, sahridayam, sammanasyam, avidvesham krinomima. There should be sahridaya, friendliness between both of you, between husband and wife, between brother and brother, between sister and sister, like that. And the names are also mentioned, the proper nouns are mentioned, like Anuvratah Pitu Putro Matra Bhavatu Sammanah. There should be friendliness between father and the son, between the mother and the son, between the swasa and swasa, sister and sister. The Veda goes a step further and directs that the human beings should live in complete concord without being jealous of each other, and there should be perfect union of hearts and minds amongst them. Now, the last principle that I want to dwell upon is the foundation of a family, and that is the idea of a marriage or a couple. Another significant aspect of the Vedic view of intraconnectedness among human beings is that of a perfect parity between male and a female, although that requires another lecture on the status of women in the Veda. But just now I am focusing and pointing out only one aspect of it, the relationship between husband and wife. The Rig Vedas exhorts that Jayedastam, Jaya it astam, wife verily is the home. The address by the bride in Atharva Veda lifts the physical union of husband and wife to a spiritual level. And remind you, all these verses are still recited in Hindu marriage, but hardly anyone explains the meaning and significance of these verses, so people don't realize. In Hindu or Vedic religion, I should say, marriage is a sacrament. It is not a contract. Marriage is a sacrament, a union of hearts and minds, not just of the bodies. So the significance and the secret symbolism of marriage is very, very important, where the sanctity and authority, the respectable status of women is highlighted. The beautiful verse from Atharva Veda I recite, Amohamasmi satvam samahamasmi riktvam gyauraham prithivitvam taviva sambhava vahai prajamajanaya vahai. I am song, thou art verse. The bride is telling the bridegroom, I am song, thou art verse. I am heaven, thou art earth. Together, both of us shall live here, becoming parents of progeny. The Vedas propound complete equality and complementarity between man and woman, which has been followed in the later Vedic tradition of Ardhanarishwara and the marriage ritual. The various epithets used in Vedas to denote a woman are sufficient evidence to prove the respectable status a woman enjoyed in Vedic society. So much so, she has been addressed to be a queen of the household. Samrajyi Shwashure Bhava, Samrajyi Shwashruam Bhava. Not only this, her intellectual capabilities are also recognized well in the Vedas. Soon after the marriage, she is invited to address a Vidatha, a religious assembly in which it was the ambition of the sages to speak eloquently. Vashini tvam vidatham avadasi. It goes without saying that the foundation for social concord and universal harmony is laid in a happy family where both the partners live and work in coordination rather than the aggressive competition and confrontation of modern times. This basic truth had since been realized by the Vedic seers. Hence, the depiction of family union and conjugal love is unparalleled therein. The Vedas not only urge humankind to stay united and interconnected with other elements of the universe, but also inspire and awaken their inner stream of consciousness. So coming from the universe to the society, to the family, to the couple, now we are reaching to ourselves, the Atman, the soul, the self. And the Vedas focus on this aspect, and they inspire the jivas, every individual, to ignite their own consciousness, ignite and upgrade. The jivas may rise up to the level of devas. Everyone can rise up to the level of deva. That is why Manur Bhava Janaya Daivyam Janam. If you become a human being, you can also reach out to the potential of a divine. So divinity is to be strived, but humanity in the form is given to us. In mind, we have to cultivate that, emulate that. So throughout the Vedic lore, there is an ascendant idea of getting up, growing, rising, and transcending. This is what we may call Vedic dynamism. Many of the statements in the Vedas call upon humanity to ascend higher and still higher, such as follows: Udyanam te Purusha Navayanam. You should ascend higher and never fall down. Arohanam, Akramanam, Jivato, Jivatoyanam. Ascending and moving in all sides is the sign of life. What is life? Life is moving and ascending high. If you are static, if you are not moving, if you are not ascending, if you are not rising, it means you are not living. So life in Vedic view is ascending higher, getting up and rising. The same spirit of ascending is reflected in several aspirations of earthly beings who wish to transcend darkness and reach out to the highest light of spiritual glory, that is the sun. On the basis of above brief delineation, it may be stated that the Vedic view is an inclusive one, where each and every tiny particle of the cosmos is accepted as an individual object. Nothing is negated or rejected, but there is an underlying principle of interconnectedness which makes everything of the universe related to each other and to the ultimate reality as well. The integral vision of the Vedas is eternally relevant to humanity, since it propounds a basic principle of life and goes even up to the extent of those objects or beings which are very minute and cannot be seen. They are invisible. We have this prayer in the Atharva Veda which says, Yascha pashyami, yascha na, teshu ma sumatim kridhi. Among those whom I see and among those whom I can't see, who are very subtle, may you cultivate my friendship for them. I should be friendly to those whom I see. I should be friendly to those whom I don't see, like the virus, the coronavirus. You see, in the tradition of Jainas, they have this mask put in even before the corona started, because there are very, very subtle, invisible microbes and bacteria and viruses who are conscious. So they are also living beings. I should be friendly to them. In fact, this feeling of care and concern for all aspects of creation is that it is vital for any sustainable society. The Vedas not only exhort the human beings to rise and grow themselves, but also urge upon them to feel and fend for other aspects of life across the universe. We have to adopt this mindset and adapt it to our modern lifestyle so as to respect, appreciate, and tend to the divine spirit in everything around us. And that has been the Indian tradition, that we respect everything. Nadi Mata, Go Mata, Vriksha ki puja karna. All these ideas or rituals, they might seem meaningless, but actually they are meant to remind us of the conscious principle pervading all these objects. This should not be taken as exclusive monism on the one hand or pluralism on the other hand. Rather, we should take a holistic view of the reality, which is so beautifully expressed in the Atharva Veda as follows: Purnat Purnam Udanchati, Purnam Purnena Sichyate, Uto Tadadya Vidyama Yatastat Parishichyate. From the full, it takes out the full. The full is impregnated with the full. May we know today that where from that is impregnated. The source of that impregnation, that source we have to reach out. We are looking, exploring for that source of immortality, for that source of Purnata, because we are all a Purna. We are looking for peace because we are not at peace. So all these principles of peace, of fullness, of prosperity, of immortality are the Vedic aspirations of human beings, which can be actualized only when we care for other beings, rather than myself. If I care for everything around me, then this feeling of mutual trust, mutual affection gets stronger, gets expressed in a family. But the tragedy is that in today's time, the Indian system of family, which was a training workshop for the cosmic exercise, that workshop, that training field itself is eroding. The foundations of that training lab are eroding. So we have to remind ourselves, go back to our sources and try to cultivate these ideas. With these words, I stop here, and now it's open. If you have any questions, I'm ready for that.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. That was, you've given us so much to think about. And we have a whole bunch of questions in the chat box. So I will just
You have to reach
open.
out to me.
Yes, I will. I will. Right. So we begin with Ria's question. So Ria says, when we talk about interconnectedness, can we say that the purpose of the life of a person is also connected with someone else's? Can this interconnectedness of the purpose be related to the idea of the world as one family? So I think ma'am has answered it, but that's Ria's question.
I think that is what I have been trying to explain.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think
extend ourselves, isn't it? We have to go beyond our limited existence and go beyond, connect with each other, and then we have to go for the family. First of all, I grow as an individual. I awaken myself, isn't it? I ignite that spirit. From individual, I go to the couple. From couple, we go to the family. And from family, we go to the community or the society, like that.
Right. Yes. Thank you, ma'am. So this question, I think, was so Ria had put it a little earlier, and I think later on you had addressed it. Next question is by Yuvraj. So Yuvraj says, does it mean that advancing at the present moment in terms of technology can prove disastrous? That we need to be a little slow in this growth and observe whether our inventions have natural consequences. So
no, I won't say that technology is disastrous. Progress of technology is desirable, but not extreme technology. We have to maintain a balance, isn't it? Balance between the natural and the technological. But what happens is that nowadays we are only focusing on the technology, so much so that the human beings have themselves become the tools and devices, like robots. So we have to maintain our own dignity, maintain our basic nature, basic values of being human, being considerate to others. If we maintain that, if we can have, it's a very, very difficult thing, I know, because the Upanishads have said, Kshurasya dhara nishita duratyaya. living in this world and thinking of the immortal. They are explaining this idea, but they say it is like walking on a razor's edge. Kshurasya dhara, छुरे के ऊपर चलने जैसा है. Similarly, when we are living in this age of technology, it is very difficult that we don't get involved in the technological advancement. We need not stop the advancement. We need not we need not avoid it also. We cannot, even if we want, we cannot. But what we can do is that while using technology, while progressing in technological areas, we try to retain the basic values. If your roots are strong, then nobody can, no tufan, no, you see, air can uproot you. So your roots have to be strong, the roots of humanism, the roots of mutual trust, the roots of affection, the roots of humankind, manavata, that we have to retain.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Our next question is from Shivam. So Shivam Shivam says that your ideas are so beautiful, the thoughts from the Vedas are so inspiring, but still the youth continue to be influenced by Western influences, Western trends. They engage themselves in all kinds of activities. When will the youth of today sort of understand the Sanatan Dharma's philosophies and how useful it is both for Mother Earth and their children?
Yeah, so I think he is supporting what I said. Even I want to know when will this happen. The thing is that youth like you should be at least aware of what it is there in your sources, isn't it? The tragedy is that today's generation, or maybe now you are being open to these, you are lucky to have been studying at Symbiosis, where all these values are being taught to you. But most of the Western universities, where these values are not being taught. So the children studying in Western, and these days it has become a trend. Everybody who passes out from the class 12, they want to go abroad. It's good to go abroad and get the knowledge. The Vedas say, Ano bhadraha kratavo yantu vishwatah. Let noble thoughts come to us from all sides. But it doesn't mean that we forget our own noble thoughts. Wherever there are noble thoughts, we should inculcate, but we should also be aware of the traditional Indian culture. If you go, there are beautiful things, beautiful objects, and beautiful products around the world, but they cannot match the natural beauty. When the epidemic like Corona strikes, no amount of money, no amount of consumer objects, no amount of materialistic comfort can give you solace. So you have to have a balance in thought, a balance in ideas, and a balance in values. In Indian tradition, they have had 4 pursuits of life: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So there was a fine balance. They never said that don't earn money. It is said in the Veda, Shatahasta Samahara Sahasrahasta Sankira. Earn with 100 hands, but distribute with 1,000 hands. So Shatahasta Samahara Sahasrahasta Sankira. But nowadays, earn as much as you can and then hoard it, but don't give it to those who are needy, who are deserving. So we have to share our resources. We have to share our values. We have to share our feelings. That is the basic Indian culture. This is the message of the Vedas, which we have to propagate.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Our next, so there are lots of questions, but so the next question is from Madhav. So Madhav from Dr. Vidya's office. So his question is, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is a philosophy that inculcates an understanding that the whole world is one family. It is a philosophy that tries to foster an understanding that the whole of humanity is one family. It is a social philosophy emanating from a spiritual understanding that the whole of humanity is made of one life energy. If the divine source is one, then why are we so different as individuals? Why are there so many different kinds of individuals?
Very beautiful question. It needs a lot of explanation, But if I can answer it, because I am a student of philosophy, basically, Indian philosophy. So we are different because we all are created out of Prakriti. And Prakriti is Trigunatmika. There are three constituents of Prakriti: Sattva, Raja, and Tama. So these three are not only the constituents, they are also the manifestations. So even in a single person, all these three can be manifested at different times. I am Sattvika at the moment because I am teaching such noble ideas. But at times I may be emotionally disturbed. That will be my moment of Rajoguna, Rajasa. But there may be moment like Arjuna had in the battlefield. He knew everything and then he forgets everything. Tamasika. So we are different because different ideas, different amounts of sattva, sattva, raja, and tama are ingrained in us. Just a moment. This is one principle of metaphysical. By the time you read next, I'll answer it together. Please.
Right. So the next question again is from Madhav. And his question is in terms of, in terms of these ideas of climate change and global warming, there's so much that we can learn from the Vedas. So how do we promote global responsibility using the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam concept? And how can we use it to help, the environment and attract the attention of the world community towards these issues of climate change and global warming?
Yeah. Let me come to the first one and I'll complete it. The first thing is that we are born different due to these three principles, these three constituents, Sattva, Raja, and Tama. And the second principle is that each one of us has different karmas. So we are born, the present body, the present family, the present ability, everything is given to me depending upon my previous karmas. Because Indian philosophy believes in the theory of karma and rebirth. So we are born different because we have accumulated different types of karmas, and to enjoy or suffer according to our karma stored, we have to face that, we have to experience that we are born different. This is the first question, which I can explain in this way. Maybe there are different ways. And the second question is very, very vital. The environmental change or the climate change and the other challenges that the world is facing today. I have narrated some of the ideas, and out of these ideas, the central principle of yajna, that is the clue for meeting this environmental challenge. Yajna not in the form of ritual alone, but in the form of sacrifice. If I have so much, if I can only think of reducing my consumption to a level, isn't it? Not only reducing, I'm offering to someone. If I have a plate full, let me offer at least the fourth portion of the plate. 3/4 I can eat, but 1/4 I'll share with others. So if I share with others, if I reduce my consumption level, that will be the only way forward. Each one of us. I cannot go and teach everyone around. It's very difficult. In fact, in earlier societies, we could influence our neighbors and our larger family. These days, it has become very, very difficult to teach anybody. The best way is to practice rather than preach. So we can practice reducing our own consumption and consumption of those items which are detrimental to environment, isn't it? Like plastics. If we can reduce our use of plastic, if we can share our resources with others, I think that will be, if the mindset has to be changed for all this. If we change our own mindset, if we emulate these things, then others around us will see, will observe, and they will start following. I think that is the best way.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, ma'am. Our next question is from Amanpreet. who asks, I wanted to ask if we can consider the process of knowledge being imbibed in the context of yajna.
Yeah. Because I didn't mention the third meaning of yajna actually. The term yajna is derived from a root which is yaj. The first meaning is deva puja, as I said, propitiating the divine forces. The second one was Sangati Karana. Sangati Karana is the communitarian participation. And third one is Dan, offering. So Deva Puja, Sangati Karana, and Dan. These are the three derived meanings of Yajna. And there are 5 types of Yajna mentioned for every householder in Indian tradition, in Vedic tradition. Out of these Pancha Mahayajnas, the first one is Brahma Yajna. Brahma Yajna is studying, enhancing your knowledge. So your question is very, very important and it is already answered. The first yajna every day we should perform is Brahma Yajna. That once I offer something to the fire or to any divine force that I worship or adore, I should also enhance my knowledge. Either I should study, I should discuss, I should listen to others, whatever way it is. These days we have different types of satsangs going on, maybe video, audio, but at least they are propagating some message, some knowledge. And what are we doing? Through these lectures, through classes, we are also interacting, gaining from each other. So enhancement of knowledge is ingrained in the principle of yajna.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next, we are running out of time, so perhaps I'll just ask you a couple of more questions, even though there are many more in the chat box. So our next question is by Tejas, who says, I wonder or I hypothesize if all forms, all animate and inanimate objects realize their true self and their relationship with Brahman, then would all gross, subtle and causal worlds merge into the all-pervading Brahman? And by that logic, then does duality arise out of a disturbance caused in this kind of interconnectedness or this kind of merging with the all-pervading Brahman?
Yeah. I didn't get the name of the questioner.
Right. So this is Tejas.
Tejas. Actually, the idea that you have mentioned is from the Upanishads or from Vedanta. Vedanta is the ultimate philosophy of Veda. But whatever I narrated, based on the original Vedas, there is no such idea. And I repeatedly said that everything does not merge, does not lose its identity. So, according to the Vedic view, there is monism as well as pluralism. No extreme monism, no extreme pluralism. So according to this, all objects may be animate or inanimate. They are permeated by the spirit. But if all of them merge, if all of them accomplish their goal of life, even then creation will start. Even in the Upanishads itself, there is a statement which says, Brahman was alone. Sa ekaki naiva reme. He was one, but he didn't enjoy being one. Atmanam dvedha apataya. He divided himself into 2 and became man and woman. Stri purushau cha bhavatam. One became wife and the other became husband. So even if everything merges into one, that one again starts manifesting in many forms. So this oneness and manyness, this multiple forms and the one essence, they keep, ours is the notion of cyclic time, isn't it? So the same things come back. We don't have a vertical linear notion of time. So it will start again. Srishti Chakra, it goes on. Right?
Yes. Thank you so much. I think we're all learning so much. Just 2 quick final questions. One is by Harjas Singh, who says, ma'am, you mentioned that the Vedas talk about the natural elements like Agni, etc., as different names for one single principle. So when was it that people started understanding them as different and moving towards more pluralistic interpretations?
Very good question. You see, we have a whole lot of Vedic literature. And if you study a bit of history of Vedic literature, we have these 4 Vedas, which are known as Samhitas: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda. But when they were started being commented upon, commentators came, hundreds of commentators, and we have the text known as Brahmana texts. Vedas are in poetry, in verse, but Brahmana texts are in prose. So commentaries started, hundreds of years have passed, and people have started taking the narration literally. They have taken the yajna to be ritual and following it only as a ritual. The Brahmana texts explain these into ritual forms, and from there started this idea of taking each one of the deities as different. From Brahmanas, we come to the Aranyakas, from Aranyakas to Upanishads, still there is one. But from Upanishads, when we come to the Puranic mythology, then you have Shiva Purana, you have Vishnu Purana, you have Skanda Purana, you have a Devi Bhagavat Purana. So it is in the Puranic mythology when the Vedic mythology and Vedic symbolism, I would say, started disappearing. Because symbolism everybody cannot explain and everybody cannot understand. Narration can be described, and narration, if taken literally, it mars the essence, isn't it? If you read a poet and you don't get to read its essence, hidden meaning, then poetry is of no use. Similarly, if we read Vedas only in a literal sense and we miss the essence, then this multiplicity of forms, multiplicity of deities, it started emerging. That is what I feel.
So I know we've run out of time, but I think Krishna's question is important. So if you could very briefly maybe respond to it. So the final question is, what lessons should the present world peace movement learn from the Vedas?
The best lesson, as I said earlier, I would repeat, that each one of us should try to transcend our limits. Whatever is limiting, restricting me, I should try to go out of that. We should try to transcend our own limits, reach out to the other, and share with the larger community and society. That is the only way we can learn the very basic and the very essential first step towards Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. On that wonderful note, I think we've really had a very delightful session. And I'm sure that all of us as we can now happily call ourselves your students. And we hope to sort of carry this vision that you've offered to us, this worldview, into our daily lives, into our daily interactions. So thank you so much for giving us this wonderful session on this Saturday afternoon.
Thank you, Vidyaji, for giving me this opportunity. I had a very, very wonderful experience too, because the questions that were put after the lecture, they are a signal to the level of receptivity that the students had. And I thank each one of you for listening to me with patience and for trying to understand what I was saying. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think Dr. Vidya was there right up till 3:30, but 3:30 there's a very important meeting that was going to take place. So I believe ma'am has gone for that meeting. So
she was. Regards to her, please.
I will. She was there right till the very end, but because the questions were going on, I don't think she wanted to interrupt at that point. So I will do that. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you.
Thank you.